Hi, this is Jeff from the Ozark Mountains. That's in Missouri, in the USA. Today, we're doing a wrap-up on our C64 donation series. We've been refurbishing a Commodore 64 system for a young man with some special circumstances. We've had a few other accessories and bits and bobs come in that's been donated to the project, so we're going to cover those today and check everything out. Let's jump right in. First up, we have this lovely NuBrick power supply from Kevin Ottum. I'm sure all of you are aware of the poor reputation that the original Commodore Brick of Death power supplies have. And unfortunately these days we have enthusiasts like Kevin who make excellent replacement power supplies. You can see how big this is in relation to the machine. It's in a matching color. And I took a peek inside and it is built really, really well. I was really impressed. Not only was it built well, it was packaged really well. It always impresses me when somebody takes the time to package up something so it doesn't get damaged on the way to you. It's got a nice cord on each end, nice connectors, an external fuse for the primary power, a couple internal fuses, and he includes this little booklet in the box which explains all about the power supply and the various fuses. That was a nice touch. If you'd like to contact Kevin about getting one of these for yourself, I have included his email address in the link down below, and you can also find him on Facebook. Let's get this guy plugged in and fire this 64 up. What do you say? CommodoreKazz also sent in a box of goodies for the project. We have here a Wi-Fi modem, which is very nice looking. It's not only aesthetically pleasing, but I realized that this also helps you push it in and pull it out. That was a nice touch. This uses the ESP32 Wi-Fi module on here. And I will link to his video showing the setup instructions below. He also included a couple great cartridges, Grid Runner, which is a classic Jeff Minter game, and Simon's Basic. We all know how limited the built-in BASIC on the Commodore 64 was, and this is a great upgrade from back in the day. And he also included this Pi 1541 hat, which I slapped on a Pi 3B, or 3B Plus, I forget which, and it had the little OLED screen here. I printed out this case. It didn't come out too good, but it gives it something to set in. And what do you say we pop this Wi-Fi modem in here and take a look? Okay, I've got our WiModem plugged in, and I loaded CCGMS 2019 off of the Pi 1541, and we'll get that configured to talk to my home Wi-Fi network. First thing we want to do is make sure our baud rate is 300 baud. This is for talking to the modem itself for configuration. And we're going to switch to ANSI terminal mode with an F7. Once we get back to the main screen, we'll hit return again. We get a nice welcome message from the modem. And then we use our AT commands to set our network details. We go AT string SSID equals and then we do AT string password equals of course these would be the details of your network, not mine. And after we've done that, we can go back to our graphics terminal mode and type in ATC1, which just turns on the Wi-Fi modem, so it should connect to our home network. And I find if I've had problems at this point, it's because I've typed in the password or the SSID wrong. Now that we're here, there's a couple things we need to type in. If we were switching to 9600 baud mode, I'm going to stick with 2400, but I'll show you what these are. AT at P0 which tells it to use a certain polarity for one of the control lines, I believe, and AT at K1, which uses hardware handshaking. Okay. Then we need to set the baud rate, which is AT string set baud to 2400. And we'll get a message that says, hey, I'm going to do that in 5 seconds. And it'll pop a character up there saying it's done, and we'll hit F7. We'll change this to 2400. And now we're all configured. It's at this point that you would type in AT and W to save it to the flash so you don't have to reconfigure it every time. I'm not going to do that because this is going to go to the young man getting the system, and he needs to configure that for his home network. And then at this point we can connect to a BBS. Instead of a telephone number, we use a web address like AT DT bbs.sin tronian Canada port 6400. And it's asking us how we're set up. We're going to say a 40-column PETSCII terminal, and we get a nice PETSCII graphic display. And we are connected to a bulletin board system running on a Commodore 64 in Canada. How cool is that? And when this young man gets tired of the equivalent of web surfing from 1985, he might decide to write some programs in Simon's Basic or play a game of Grid Runner. Let's have a look at that. Of course, Grid Runner is a classic Jeff Minter game, and Jeff Minter games are like no other. It's probably because his first name is Jeff. Let's give this a shot. I haven't played this in years, and I really stink at it. Oh, and I got blown up. I don't think I was ever very good at this game. Wow, I cleared one level. Let's take a look at that Simon's Basic cartridge now. I'm sure most folks are aware of the limitations of the BASIC that was built into the Commodore 64. Particularly in the area of graphics and sound, it was kind of difficult to program because you had to peek and poke and do a lot of things and know a lot about individual registers. It was really an encumbrance. That was one of the areas that Simon's Basic helped with, is having commands for sound and graphics and programming aids like automatic renumbering of your program and things like that. It was really pretty slick. Let's type in a quick little program to draw a rectangle on the screen, and we'll see how much easier that is than having to do a bunch of peeks and pokes and know something about registers. So we'll tell it we want a high-res screen with a selection of colors, that we want to draw a rectangle with these coordinates. And we will run that. And we've got a nice little rectangle in the corner of the screen. And that was heaps a lot easier than trying to do something like that with the built-in Commodore Basic. It's a really nice aid for learning how to program and just experimenting and things like that. I'm sure the young man that's getting this will have a lot of fun with it. And then we've got our nice Pi 1541 here. Now this is built on a board from an open source project. There you can see the details, and I will put a link to that below. And a link to the Pi 1541 project website as well. Now, I normally use an SD to IEC, and I can see advantages and disadvantages to both ways of going about it. The big advantage to the Pi 1541 is it is a cycle-accurate emulation of a 1541, or now a 1581 drive. The little OLED screen makes it nice to navigating around using the buttons here. And it even has an HDMI output, so you can look at what you're doing on a big screen as well, which is how I initially hooked it up for debugging purposes. Because this is so versatile, the configuration is a lot more involved than an SD to IEC. If you buy something ready-made, that's already going to be set up, so you don't have to worry about it. If you're putting together a kit yourself, then you're going to have to know how you've got things configured and what parts you've got on there to know how to set up the configuration file. But once you do that, it's fairly easy to use. And of course, since it's a Raspberry Pi, you just have a micro SD card here that you can put your files on. And setting the card up itself is a fairly simple thing to do. All in all, a nice little device. Well, here's the setup we have going to this young man. His mother was able to find him a Commodore 1702 monitor relatively inexpensively in his own area, so they are all set there. And we've got our Commodore 64, the NuBrick power supply, joysticks, the Pi drive, Grid Runner, and Simon's Basic, and Epic's fast load cart, the WiModem, of course some cables to hook it all together, the data set, 1541, which we refurbished, about a month or so ago in another video, and a selection of books that were just duplicates that I had, so I just threw into the pot. And I will get this all boxed up and sent to this young man so he can start learning and having fun. I would really like to thank the Commodore community for all chipping in and donating all the things that made this project possible. That was very nice of you, and I greatly appreciate it, and I know this young man and his mother really appreciate it as well. I would also like to thank David Zieglar, who donated a box of 5¼ floppy disks, which were still in transit at the time of this recording. Thanks, David. It's nice to see some young folks getting enthusiastic about these old computers that us middle-aged guys find so interesting. It's kind of nice to see a new generation of vintage computer enthusiasts, I guess you could say. So I hope he has a lot of fun with this and learns a lot, and perhaps it'll do for him what it did for a lot of us when we were about that age. It kind of set the course for our life and got us interested in computers and electronics and programming and that type of thing, and led to the careers that many of us have today. Well, until next time, bye.